Okay, so we are getting ready to switch over to Zoom. And here is Dr. Neal Barnard.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Dr. Chapter.
Thank you for letting me join you today. Should I get started with my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we are looking forward to it.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you very much. I want to talk about something a little bit different today, and that is how foods can affect our hormones. And that might sound like a bit of a strange thing, but it gives you incredible power. I'd like to tell you about it. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. The old idea was that you'd eat some bad food and that would cause a problem like overweight or high cholesterol or diabetes or something like that. Fair enough, but we can be a lot more nuanced about it. And when we do, we get a huge amount of power over our health. Here's what I'm talking about. We eat foods. Foods in turn influence our hormones. And hormones affect everything in your body. So you've got power over a wide variety of things that you never have thought you could influence. I want to show you how to do it. But first, what are hormones anyway? Hormones are like letters in the mail. Your thyroid gland at the base of your neck makes thyroid hormone. That goes in the blood to the cells of your body to give you energy. And you can have your pancreas making insulin. That's a hormone too. And that goes through the blood to other cells of the body to let glucose inside. So hormones are like letters in the mail. Problem is, sometimes you can get what I'm going to call hormone haywire. That is because you don't have enough letters in the mail. You don't have enough hormones. Sometimes you got too many letters in the mail, too much in the way of hormones, and that creates hormone haywire. Okay, let's dig in and see how this works. I want to start with the hormone insulin. Insulin is what we think about with diabetes, right? People have high blood sugar, and the high blood sugar could be a real problem for them. And that's because their insulin hormone that's supposed to get the sugar out of their blood isn't working right. Okay. In 2003, the National Institutes of Health gave my research team a grant to see if we could find a better diet for dealing with type 2 diabetes. That's the common form of diabetes. And what we were testing was a completely plant-based diet compared to a conventional diet. And let me show you what these diets were. The conventional diet said, limit your calories so that you're not eating too much food. You're going to lose weight. Keep carbohydrates steady. Don't eat bad fats. The plant-based diet was completely different. It did not limit calories. It didn't limit carbohydrates. It said no animal products. It's vegan. Minimize oils, so not a lot of greasy stuff. And third was low glycemic index foods. Now, don't get confused about that. That just means, is a food boosting your blood sugar or not? White bread will tend to cause your blood sugar to spike. That's high glycemic index. But if it's rye bread or say pumpernickel bread, that has less effect on your blood sugar. So that's lower glycemic index. Or beans are low glycemic index food. They have carbohydrate, but the carbohydrate raises your blood sugar pretty gradually. So the plant-based intervention, vegan, very low in fat, healthy, low GI foods. What did we find? Let me cut to the chase. We tracked something called hemoglobin A1C. That's a measure of your blood sugar control. And if you got diabetes, you're trying to get it below 7. Well, our people started out around 8. And the red line here is people in the control group, the conventional group. And what happened with them is they improved. Their A1C dropped by about 0.4 absolute percentage points. That's good. But the blue line, that's the people in the vegan group. And they dropped 3 times more. They dropped by 1.2 absolute percentage points, or even better than that. And that really made some medical history because we found that with just diet changes alone, not limiting carbohydrates at all, you can knock your A1C down. Your diabetes can get under dramatically better control. This is Vance. Vance was one of our first research participants, and he followed this diet. He said, you know, this vegan diet's really pretty easy. You don't have to count carbs. You don't have to count calories at all. You eat as much as you want. Instead of meat chili, you have bean chili. That's super easy. Over a year, he lost 60 pounds. His doctor stopped his medications, and his A1C, which had been 9.5, which is way too high, dropped to 5.3, which is totally normal. And I want to make sure we understand the significance of this. When I was in medical school, we were taught, once you've got diabetes, you'll always have diabetes. But here was a man who had had diabetes for years, who now wasn't on any medication, and his blood sugar was at exactly the normal, healthy level. And we started to realize that diabetes can, for all intents and purposes, go away. So that allows us to see that's a more powerful result, because this is a more powerful diet than we had tried before. Okay, I want to show you how a vegan diet helps with type 2 diabetes. And if you're paying attention to something else, let me have your attention now for about 2 minutes, because I want to show you the cause of type 2 diabetes. This will change your life. This purple oval that you see, that's a cell in your body. And that could be, say, a muscle cell. Your cells are powered by glucose. Glucose is a natural sugar. It's in apples and oranges and in grains and beans and starchy vegetables. And that glucose comes out in your digestion. And if it can get inside your cells, you've got power, you've got energy. The problem is the glucose molecules can't get into the cell. They just bounce off the membrane. They can't get inside. What do I do? Well, there's the key. That key is called insulin. And that insulin key will attach to the surface of the cell, and it will open up little channels that let the sugar come inside. Here it comes. Okay? So the insulin key opens up that membrane, in comes the sugar. What could ever go wrong? Well, here's what could go wrong. Let's say my dinner looked like that. What if my lunch looked like that? What if my breakfast came from that? What if I'm eating a lot of fatty foods? That's right. There's a lot of fat in these foods. If you add it up, even chicken without the skin, a lot of fat. So what? That fat that you eat gets inside your cells. The fat from the foods that you're eating gets inside your muscle cells. Doctors don't like to call it fat because that's only got 3 letters. So we'll call it intramyocellular lipid. But the fat inside the cells stops insulin from working. The insulin still attaches, but it's like a key that won't work. So the glucose molecules can't get inside anymore. They bounce off. They just can't get through that membrane. What do I do? Can I get the fat out of my cells? Can I make diabetes go away? What if I do just a vegan diet? Vegan means no animal products, so there's no animal fat. And what if I keep the vegetable oils low too? Then there's not much of any kind of fat. And the fat starts to dissipate. It starts to go away. That's right. And when it goes away, that insulin resistance caused by all that fat is replaced by insulin sensitivity. And now the cell can open up again, and the sugar can get out of the blood and into the cell, and everybody's happy. Can diabetes improve? Can you reduce your medicine? Maybe get off them completely? Maybe have your diabetes go away? The answer to all of these is yes. And the answer is a low-fat vegan diet, because the vegan diet, by definition, it doesn't have a scrap of animal fat in it. And we keep the oils low too. Okay, we've talked about insulin. Let me talk about estrogens. Estrogens, female sex hormones, right? Well, this is Robin. I was sitting at my desk one day and my phone rang. And Robin called me up. She said, Dr. Barnard, I need your help. And I said, how can I help you? She said that she had terrible menstrual cramps. Now, a lot of women have menstrual cramps, but for maybe 1 in 10, they are so bad that one day every month, you're going to have trouble getting to work. You're going to have trouble doing whatever's in your routine. And so she was taking a lot of ibuprofen and so forth, and she felt she needed a stronger medicine. As she described the torture that she was going through, I realized we needed to do more than just give her painkillers for right now. So I suggested something to her that I don't know that any doctor ever suggested to a patient before for something like this. I said, let me give you painkillers for the next 2 days so that you can function. But then would you like to try an experiment with me? She said, I'll try anything. I suggested to her for the next 4 weeks, no animal products in her diet and keep oils very, very low. So vegan diet, but also not having greasy French fries, onion rings, frying things in grease. We talked about greatly reducing the oils. She called me back a month later and she said, this is the most remarkable thing. My period started and I didn't have any pain at all. And as the months went by, she noticed that if she would deviate from this diet even a little bit, her pain would come back pretty seriously. So that suggested to me that for all those people who are struggling with menstrual pain, maybe a diet could really help them. But I wanted to put this to the test. So with our colleagues at Georgetown University's Department of OBGYN, we brought in women who had menstrual pain, and half of them went on this same diet, vegan diet, low in fat. The other half went on a supplement that was really a placebo. And after 2 cycles, they switched. The diet group started the supplement. The supplement group started the diet. And in a word, it worked. We published the results in the journal Obstetrics and Gynecology, and what we found is that pain intensity fell, the pain duration fell, and premenstrual symptoms like bloating and water retention and moodiness, they improved too. Okay, so why would this work? Why would I suggest such a thing to a patient? Here's why. This is estrogen, the female sex hormone. This is the amount of estrogen in a woman's blood during 1 month, during her reproductive years. And as you can see, at the beginning of the month, there's not much estrogen in her blood, but it rises to a peak and then it falls. She's ovulating, an ovary is releasing an egg. And then over the next week or so, this is the 3rd part of her menstrual cycle, the amount of estrogen is rising, and it's rising because the uterus is the most optimistic organ in the body. Every single month, it's convinced, we're going to get pregnant this month for sure. But after that week, the disappointed uterus discovers we're not pregnant after all, and the amount of estrogen falls, and the uterine lining that has been thickening up in anticipation of pregnancy is discharged in menstrual flow. Here's the key. This whole curve can be changed, and it can be changed based on what you eat. What? You're saying that I can affect my estrogen levels based on what I eat, and that will affect my uterus? Yes. Tufts University in 1994, researchers published the results in a group of women who came into the metabolic ward where they studied diets, and the diets lasted 8 to 10 weeks. Some of them reduced fat. Some of them increased fiber. Some of them did both. And they were locked up so they couldn't order from McDonald's or go out to Burger King. And what they found was that just reducing the fat in your diet alone, getting away from animal fat, getting away from any kind of fat, that reduced estradiol. It reduced estrone, which is another form of estrogen, free estradiol, estrone sulfate. All of these things dropped just by cutting the fat. But there was more. They also increased fiber. That means the roughage in vegetables and fruits and beans, whole grains. By increasing fiber, estrogens fell too. So the diet that I suggested for Robin cut the fat and increased fiber. It did both at the same time. It was a low-fat, completely vegan diet. That means everything you eat has fiber in it. It doesn't have much fat. And so the result was dramatic and fast. Okay, let me make sure you understand. This is a diagram of the uterus. That's in the middle of your screen. And out on the left and right, you see the ovaries connected by the fallopian tubes. As the month goes by, estrogens cause that little, the inner lining, that little pink layer, that's the endometrium. That's where a fertilized ovum will attach. Estrogens cause that lining to thicken up. That's normal. That's anticipation of pregnancy. But what if you had too much fat in your diet and your estrogen goes up? Or you didn't have any fiber in your diet and your estrogen level goes up even more? Then that inner lining of the uterus tends to expand too much because of too much estrogen, and that causes pain. It causes prostaglandins to be released, and they make you feel terrible and out of sorts and cause cramping. So the diet that I'm suggesting, low-fat, healthy, simple vegan diet, knocks out that estrogen excess, and the excess of prostaglandins makes you feel better, okay? So instead of having this painful periods, you have a lot more relaxed periods. Okay, how does this work? The short answer is we don't know exactly how a high-fat diet elevates estrogens. We just see that it does. But we have a pretty good clue about how fiber works. Fiber works in your digestive tract, as you know. In this diagram, you see the liver. That's at the top of the screen. The liver filters excess estrogens out of your blood. The estrogens go down the bile duct, which is the little green tree there, and the estrogens go down the bottom. They reach the intestinal tract, and they go around and around, and then eventually they go out with the waste. You're literally flushing excess estrogens down the toilet. However, this all depends on fiber. If you got plenty of fiber in your digestive tract, it picks up the estrogens, it carries them out with the waste. But what if your lunch was salmon? Salmon's not a plant. Salmon is not a plant. It doesn't have any fiber in it. What if it was yogurt? What if it was an omelet? These are animal products. Animal products don't have fiber. So your liver will still pull the estrogen out, but the estrogen will not stay in your intestinal tract. It will go out from the intestinal tract into the bloodstream and it'll end up eventually back to the liver. And it goes cycling around in what we call enterohepatic circulation, meaning you've got excess estrogen cycling through your blood over and over and over again, making you feel rotten and out of sorts, until you adopt a vegan diet. And once you do, everything you eat has fiber. And away go the estrogens. Okay, are we paying attention? All right, let's see. Spam, fiber or no fiber? What do you think? Okay, you're right. It's not a plant. That's for sure. Spam is derived from animals. It doesn't have any fiber. So here is a trash can. And there it goes. KFC, fiber or no fiber? There is some fiber if you eat the carton. But apart from that, nope, chicken is not a plant. It doesn't have any fiber, and it can go too. Now, there are some things that started out life as plants, but through industrial processing, there's just not much fiber left, so we might have to get rid of them too. All right, you got the idea. Low fat, high fiber, that's a vegan diet. That's going to help control not just insulin, but estrogens too. Okay, so it helps to boost the fiber and cut the fat. Anything else? Yeah, there's one other thing. This is Catherine. Catherine was an Air Force aerospace engineer. She grew up in Louisiana, and she got an all expenses paid trip to Iraq, courtesy of the US Air Force, in 2003. Her job in the military was to build military bases and missile systems. And when you're in a war zone and you're working really hard and you're eating what the military provides, you don't gain a whole lot of weight. But when her tour of duty finished and she was able to come back to the United States, her family said, Catherine, what did you miss when you were away? When you were in the service, what things did you not get to eat that maybe you'd like to have now? She said, you know what I really missed? I missed cheese, mac and cheese snacks and all kinds of cheese stuff. And a friend of hers actually gave her an entire pack of 48 boxes of mac and cheese dinners, which she ate for 48 days straight. That's right. And she gained some weight. But she also developed a condition called endometriosis, which is cells that should be lining the uterus have now escaped, and they're all around the abdomen. They're implanting, they're growing, they cause pain, they can cause infertility because they are growing on your intestinal tract, on your ovaries, on your fallopian tubes. They hurt, and they render you infertile in some cases. So she went to the doctor. The doctor gave her painkillers, hormonal medications. Nothing was stopping the pain. And finally, her doctor said, well, I got one thing left. That's a hysterectomy. Let's just take out your uterus and get it all out, and your pain's going to go away. And Catherine at the time was 27. She and her husband were still kind of newlyweds, and they'd hoped to have a family. And a hysterectomy was not something that she was really ready for. But her doctor said, you know what, you're probably infertile anyway with all this really severe endometriosis. You may as well just have the operation and you'll be done with it. But before she could have the hysterectomy, she heard about a diet approach to see if, well, maybe it could help. And she learned about the diet that you and I have been talking about. She went vegan, kept the fat low, and her pain started to diminish. She felt better, less pain. But the pain wasn't 100% gone. There was still some residual pain. And so she thought, well, maybe I'll just go ahead and have the hysterectomy and then I'll feel normal again. And if I'm really already infertile, I got nothing to lose. So I went to have the operation anyway. And the doctor put her to sleep, and she woke up about an hour later, and the doctor came in to say, you know, after we anesthetized you, and I opened you up, and I was prepared to take out your uterus, I noticed that your endometriosis was practically gone on its own. Yes, that's right. It's somehow it's managed to go away. And the reason you had that residual bit of pain was because you had some bleeding and scarring and some adhesions where the endometriosis has been. All I had to do was free up those adhesions. I think you're going to be okay now. He never took out her uterus. She never had the hysterectomy. And as it turned out, she lost a lot of weight. She was really healthy on this low-fat vegan diet. And she wasn't infertile. She has now 3 healthy kids. And she spends her time teaching other women how they can take back their health. Okay, I mentioned cheese. Cheese, Catherine loved cheese. Does cheese have hormones in it? Well, it sure does. Cows don't give milk. Well, cows never give milk. People take their milk, but they don't even produce milk until they have been impregnated and given birth. And on modern dairies, all across the world, the cows are artificially inseminated every year. You know about this story. The cows are artificially inseminated every year. Their calves are taken away. The male calves are killed for veal. The female calves are taken away and put in an isolation hutch until they're about a year old, and then they are artificially inseminated. And they are then milked during their pregnancy. A cow's pregnancy is about 9. And if they're artificially inseminated every year, they're pregnant during much of the milking period. And a pregnant cow makes estradiol, and it gets into the blood plasma, but it also gets into the milk. What I mean is this. If you drink a glass of milk, you are getting estrogen. If you eat some ice cream or some cheese or some yogurt, you are getting estrogen. If you're feeding a glass of milk or some ice cream to your 7-year-old son, he is getting estradiol from the cow. If you're feeding your 8-year-old daughter some cheese, you're giving her estradiol from the cow. Is this a problem? You bet it is. There's no such thing as hormone-free milk. And researchers in California looked at soy milk and other kinds, and they looked at who gets breast cancer and who doesn't. And have a look at this diagram. This is the result of this study. You see along the bottom, that's the x-axis. That's how much milk women were drinking in this study. From none to a quarter cup a day, a half cup a day, 1 cup, 2 cups, 4 cups. And going vertically on the y-axis, that's the risk of getting breast cancer. The more milk, the more cancer. So some people have said, oh yeah, of course, there's estradiol in milk, it comes from a cow, but it's not really very much. Maybe not. But it's enough to affect a woman's body and in fact affect her risk of developing breast cancer, among other conditions. Okay, we've talked about insulin. We've talked about estradiol. Now I want to, the next hormonal condition I want to talk about is menopause. Menopause, when a woman is no longer having periods, and she's about 50 years old, give or take, sometimes she sails through it, but in some cases, a woman has hot flashes. That's because her ovaries aren't releasing eggs anymore, and the amount of estradiol and progesterone fall, and so she'll get hot flashes and vaginal changes. She might feel a little bit moody for a little while. That's because of these hormonal shifts. Well, what is she experiencing with a hot flash? You're sitting in a room, you're in a business meeting, and all of a sudden the blood vessels in your skin vasodilate. When they do, they're widening out. They're letting heat go out into your skin. It's like somebody turning on a radiator, and it's all of a sudden 150 degrees. This will happen at night too, 3, 4, or 5 times a night. You wake up drenched in sweat, and then you're cold, and you just never get a good night's sleep, and quality of life is going through the floor. Well, researchers looked around the world. And in the 1980s in Japan, the diet was mostly based on rice and vegetables. There was some use of fish or animal products, but not a lot. And hot flashes weren't very common. Among postmenopausal women, maybe 15% had them. They weren't usually very severe. They didn't even have a word for them. However, the Japanese diet changed. In the 90s and 2000s, the rice-based diet gave way to a little bit of a burger diet, and hot flashes went way up. And when we look at the changes in the diet in Japan, they're very telling. Rice went down, grains in general went down, potatoes, plant-based foods were diminishing. And when we look at bad stuff, animal products, fish went up, meat went up, dairy products went way up. So a Japanese diet shifted to a more animal-based diet. And in addition to increases in breast cancer and diabetes and obesity and cardiovascular disease, we also saw huge increases in hot flashes. Now, we also saw that in China, historically, when the diet didn't have as much meat in it as it does today, researchers found it wasn't really so much in the way of hot flashes. Less than 15% of women had them. They weren't really very severe. The Chinese diet historically was based on rice, noodles, relatively little in the use of animal products. Let's go down to Mexico. Fly down to Cancun, get your rent a car, drive 2 hours west, and you're in Valladolid and a neighboring town called Chichimila. And in these areas, researchers have studied Mayan women. They looked at more than 100 postmenopausal Mayan women, and they asked them, tell me about your hot flashes. And what they discovered is the Mayan women said, we don't really have that. In fact, they didn't really have much in the way of any kind of symptoms at menopause. They felt pretty much okay. Well, now, the Mayan diet is not based on rice. Their grain is corn. And it's not soybeans like in Japan, it's really black beans. But they have lots of vegetables. This one is called la chaya. The point being that in areas where the diet is more plant-based, hot flashes aren't really so common. Okay, now, why is this? Well, with regard to Japan, the first thought was maybe it's the soybeans. Because soybeans have genistein in them, and daidzein, and glycine. These are isoflavones that are not only helpful for reducing the risk of breast cancer, but also they might be good medicine against hot flashes. And so researchers in the Journal of the American Medical Association said, yeah, soy products have kind of a modest effect against hot flashes. Fair enough. But our research team here at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine decided to see if we could ramp this up a little bit. We brought in women who had moderate to severe hot flashes. We asked them to do 3 things. First of all, it was a vegan, we had half of them start on a healthy diet, which I'm going to explain in a minute. The other half didn't make any changes at all. What was the diet? The diet was no animal products, vegan diet, no cheese, no meat, nothing. Minimizing oils and a half a cup of cooked soybeans every day. Very simple. So our participants came in and we asked them to eat from what I'm going to call the power plate. That's fruits and grains and vegetables and legumes. And in a minute, I'll show you how these translate into wonderful, delicious meals. We also asked everyone to take vitamin B12, which you need for healthy nerves and healthy blood. And as the weeks went by, the control group, that's the red line, the people not making any changes, they didn't lose any weight. In fact, they gained a little bit of weight, not quite 2 pounds. That's what happens. We did the study starting last September, and September, October, November, December, people start gaining weight. But the diet group, vegan diet, low oils, soybeans, they lost almost 8 pounds over that period. Pretty good. But when it came to hot flashes, when we looked at the moderate to severe hot flashes, they dropped from about 5 a day in the intervention group down to less than 1 a day. Amazing. Now the control group improved a little bit too, but nothing like the intervention group. The intervention group, the diet group, the vegan group dropped their hot flashes by 84%. Now at the beginning of the study, all the women in the diet group, before beginning the diet, they all had moderate to severe hot flashes. After 12 weeks, 60% of them almost were pretty much cured of moderate to severe hot flashes. In the control group, no such change. Vasomotor symptoms, that's hot flashes. That improved in both groups, but especially in the diet group. And that was also true for psychosocial symptoms, how you get along with other people, physical symptoms, and sexual symptoms got better too. Now, I mentioned the controls got a little bit better too. How could that be? The short answer, I don't really know, but our theories are, number one, hot flashes often improve anyway, so they'll eventually start to tail off. The second thing was that the study went into December, and we thought maybe it was the cold weather that did it, or maybe since they knew the study was testing a vegan diet, maybe some of them went kind of semi-vegan. We're not too sure. But in any case, the diet itself, completely vegan diet, minimizing oils and having a half a cup of soybeans every day knocked out hot flashes like crazy for the women. It really, really worked. Now, when you talk with friends about soybeans or tofu or other soy products, some of them will say, I heard that soybeans cause breast cancer. Turns out to be just the opposite. In 2008, a meta-analysis combining the results of 8 prior trials in Asians and Asian Americans found that those women consuming the most soy products had a 29% reduction in their risk of developing breast cancer. That's right. Now, what if a woman has had breast cancer in the past? Sometimes they'll say, well, I better not have soy because I hear the isoflavones might cause my cancer to grow. The opposite is true. This is a combination of 5 prior studies. All the women had had breast cancer in the past, and this is the likelihood of dying of that cancer. The women who avoided soy, that's the red line, they had the highest cancer mortality. The women who consumed the most soy are the yellow and green lines, and I've separated them based on the type of cancer they had. For some, they didn't have estrogen receptors on their cells. That's called estrogen receptor negative, and that's the yellow line. And their risk of dying of their cancer was cut by more than 25%. That's great. The green line, these are people who did have estrogen receptors on their cancer cells at the time of diagnosis, and their mortality was cut even more. Here is the point. If a woman wants to avoid getting breast cancer, soybeans will help. They reduce the likelihood of getting cancer. If a woman has had breast cancer, soybeans help her to survive. Soybeans reduce the risk of dying of your cancer. So if a well-meaning but ill-informed friend, doctor, anybody says don't have soy, you're condemning that person to be in the highest mortality group. Soy products reduce the risk of cancer. All right, so what's a healthy diet? Healthy diet is fruits and grains and vegetables and legumes. Legumes are beans, peas, lentils, and vitamin B12. You need B12 for healthy nerves, healthy blood, and the amount you need is very small. It's 2.4 micrograms per day, not grams, not milligrams, but just 2.4 micrograms per day. Okay? And how do you start a diet like this? Maybe you're here and you're hearing me talk about this because you were dragged by a friend who said, you ought to do this. And you're thinking to yourself, I am sure a vegan diet would be good for me, but I can't figure out how I could ever do it or enjoy it. I just don't know how to do this. Let me show you how we do it. This is in our clinic here at the Barnard Medical Center. People come in all the time. They want to knock out their diabetes. They want to cure menstrual pain. They want to improve their health in many ways. They want to lose. We introduce them to a healthy diet in 2 steps, and I have never seen. I'm going to show you our magic secret. Take 1 week. This is step 1. Take a week and just check out the possibilities. During this week, we're not going to stop eating anything. All we're going to do is see what foods I would like if I were following a vegan diet. Okay, what would that be? I've got a week to figure it out. Let's do this. Let's take a piece of paper and do this yourself. If you're thinking, I'd like to try this, starting today or tomorrow morning, take a piece of paper and just write down breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. In those blank spaces, think of foods that you would eat if you were avoiding animal products. So let me give you some ideas. For breakfast, okay, oatmeal. But instead of oatmeal covered with heavy cream, let's cover it with some cinnamon or raisins or sliced bananas or blueberries or something like that. You can have pancakes without the butter. If you have bran flakes or corn flakes with cow's milk, try almond milk. If you're a sausage lover, go to the store. Try the vegan sausages. They've got all kinds of brands. Pick up 1 or 2, see the one that you like the most. So all we're doing this week, we're just testing out meals to see if we like them. Lunch, dinner. Could I have a pizza without cheese? Let's try it out. Let's see if it's good. I could have a vegetable chili. I could have a bean burrito. I could have, instead of a hamburger, maybe the veggie burger. I got a week. Let's give it a try. And what if we go out to dinner? Let's go to an Italian place. They've got salads, lentil soup, minestrone, pasta e fagioli. They've got angel hair pasta topped with a tomato sauce, a marinara sauce, a arrabbiata sauce. That's Italian for angry. That's a spicy sauce. All vegan. Who knew? But it's not just Italian cuisine that's going to be your best friend. How about Latin American cuisine? Let's you and I go Mexican. They've got bean burritos, bean tacos, veggie fajitas, beans and rice. I could go Italian. I could go Latin American. I could go Chinese. They've got rice dishes. They've got vegetable dishes, tofu dishes. All right, all good. If you never had tofu made right, go to a good Chinese restaurant, order it. You'll discover that this food that some Americans are kind of phobic of because they've never had Asian cuisine, it becomes something they absolutely love. Give it a try. Oh, extra points for Japanese. You go to a Japanese restaurant, the sushi bar, no, skip the fish sushi. But if you have the vegetable sushi, cucumber roll, sweet potato roll, asparagus roll, delicious, healthy, vegan. Have it with a seaweed salad, the regular salad, the edamame, the miso soup. Go to town. Now, fast food, well, Subway, they've got a vegan sub. Taco Bell is not the pinnacle of culinary art, but they've got the bean burrito, hold the cheese, and it's vegan too. All right, so I've taken a week and all I've been doing is making my list of foods, and you know what? I got a pretty darn good list of things that are vegan that I really like. You've done great. Okay, that was step 1. Now, step 2 is let's eat from that list. Okay, let's take 3 weeks. Really do this if you'd like to give it a try. For the next 3 weeks, 21 days, let's do it all vegan all the time. But it's only 3 weeks, so frankly, that makes it pretty easy to do because you can do anything for 3 weeks. And at the end of that time, you'll discover it was super easy because you already had your list, you already knew what you're going to eat. And you're physically changing. You're losing weight. If you have diabetes, your blood sugar is coming down. Your digestion is better. your energy is better. But what you also discover is that your tastes are changing. If you did this for 3 weeks, you haven't had any chicken wings, you haven't had any cheese, and you kind of discovered that you hadn't really missed them very much. Give yourself a chance to do this. This is the reason we do it this way. If you do it just every now and then, or you kind of make baby steps, you don't really get a big reward, and your tastes don't change because you're kind of reigniting the desire for bacon or whatever every couple of days. Give yourself a 3-week break. It'll change your life. Okay, let me share with you some resources that you're going to really love. The 21-Day Vegan Kickstart is an app. It's free. Go to the App Store. If you've got, do you have an iPhone or do you have an Android? You'll find it on both. It's the 21-Day Vegan Kickstart. It's in English. It's in Spanish. It's totally free. It's 21 days worth of menus, and recipes, and cooking videos, and it's fun, and it's cool, and it's free. This is my book. It's called Your Body in Balance. Everything we've discussed today is there in this book. And let me encourage you to pick it up. You'll see it on Amazon. You'll see it anywhere books are sold. You'll see it as a Kindle version. And not only will you have information on diabetes and menstrual pain and endometriosis and PCOS, and fertility, and all these things, menopausal symptoms, how to knock out or reduce your risk of hormone-related cancers and so forth. But we also have great recipes. And I want to thank Lindsay S. Nixon for that. She made bang-up fabulous recipes that are all there in Your Body in Balance. I want to thank you, but I also want to say this. I hope you've enjoyed what we've talked about today. Let me stop my share. But let me ask you, now that you have the information that we've talked about, don't keep it to yourself. If there's somebody you know who's not really at their best and could stand to improve their diet, please share this information with them. Share with them handouts, apps, books, whatever they need. You never know how many lives you can impact, but I guarantee you it will be a lot. So thank you to you. Thanks to the organizers for allowing me to share this time with you. All the best to you.
We now have time for a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Ask the question, then I will repeat it on the microphone so everyone can hear it.
So my main staple of lunch every day at work is potatoes, boiled. I boil them, a little bit of salt, vinegar, and rice, vegan spices, things like that. What about making potatoes like a centerpiece of lunch every day? Is that helpful in terms of health impacts and stuff?
So I have a gentleman here that's asking me, what are your opinions on using potatoes as a staple food and how you can build upon that?
I'm sorry. So are potatoes a healthful food and?
I'm using them as a staple food, and if that is beneficial to your diet, and just your opinion on that?
Sure. Potatoes are fine. Keep in mind, the potato has a lot of healthy starch in it. And nowadays, some people say bad things about starch, but they're wrong. Your body is actually designed to run on glucose in the same way as if you have an Oldsmobile that came out of Detroit, it's designed to run on gasoline. That's its fuel. Your body is designed to run on glucose. That's what fuels your brain. That's what fuels your muscles and all the activities you have. And potatoes have a lot of that healthy glucose in it. So that's perfectly fine. What you're doing sounds great. Where people go wrong with potatoes is they bake a beautiful potato in the oven, they pull it out and they smear it with butter and sour cream and little cheese doodles and bacon bits, and all the toppings on the potato can be a problem. We kind of do this. We take a perfectly innocent potato and we throw it into grease and it comes out as greasy French fries and that kind of stuff. But the potato itself, perfectly fine.
Dressing that you recommend salads?
I have another question here. I have a lady asking me, what dressing would you recommend for salads?
Okay, you can make your own in different ways, but here's something that you might want to do. Keep in mind, I'm trying to keep the oils really low. And if you buy a bottle of salad dressing at the store, you take a look at it and it's separated and all that oil layer is at the top and you think, I'm going to put that in my body. Let me encourage you to first experiment with different kinds of vinegars. Go to the vinegar aisle at a grocery store and they got a million of them. They got vinegar, then they've got balsamic vinegar, seasoned rice vinegar, English malt pub vinegar. They got all different ones. Have a look at them and try them out. That's one of the essential ingredients from any salads, salad dressings anyway. Instead of oil, and you might want to just leave it at that, but you might want to go a step further. If you've never tried, it's called Bragg aminos. Is this a familiar term to you? BRAGG. Go to the health food store, and right next to the soy sauce are these little spray bottles of Bragg aminos. And it's like soy sauce, but a little bit sweeter. And so put on your salad, some seasoned rice vinegar or balsamic vinegar, something like that, and spritz it with a little Bragg's if you want to. And some people like to zip it up with a little black pepper or just a little bit of slivered jalapeno peppers or something like that. Experiment with these things, have fun with it, see what happens.
Dr. Barnard, this is Mike Young. I've got some questions that people have asked me from earlier. First one is about soy, and we've been hearing some generic statements that you mentioned about soy and female-specific statements about soy. What about men-specific statements and the relationship between maybe soy and prostate issues and maybe prostate cancer?
Yeah, great question. Soy products are really helpful for men too. Soy products have been shown to reduce the risk, or I should say to be associated with reduced risk of prostate cancer. What that means is that a guy, let's say somebody like me, I grew up in North Dakota. We didn't know much about soybeans. We thought soybeans were cattle feed, and you don't eat much of them, fairly high risk of prostate cancer. If you look at men who consume soy products, now I'm not saying GMO soy, I'm saying tofu, soy milk, edamame, soybeans, miso soup, the risk of prostate cancer is cut by about 30%. Some men, once in a while, you'll hear this urban myth that soybeans might be associated with, forgive me, the term they use is man boobs. You know what I'm talking about? A guy's in the locker room and he notices his friend there who's in the shower and he's a little chunky and he's got breast enhancement. And they start talking and they say, I heard that soybeans do that. Now, they don't. Soybeans do not cause man boobs. And you can prove this to yourself. Just go to the beach on a hot summer day. And if you see a guy who peels off his t-shirt and he's kind of chunky and he's got some breast enhancement, just go right up to him and ask, how much tofu have you eaten this past week? And he will say, what are you talking about? I don't eat tofu at all. I eat burgers. I eat pizza. I eat chicken. And he doesn't have soy at all. The reason that he's got man boobs, it has nothing to do with soy. It's because he's been eating in a typical American diet that caused him to gain weight. And the more body fat you have, body fat produces estrogens. That's right. If a man has extra body fat, his testosterone goes into the fat cell and it's converted to estradiol. And so his testosterone level is dropping. And he can increase it by following a low-fat vegan diet that will reduce his body fat, allow his testosterone to rebound, and he's going to feel a whole lot better. And he should be adding soy to his diet. He'll be glad he does.
Very interesting. Dr. Barnard, it's Mike again. I have another question from the audience from earlier, asking about what you mentioned previously earlier in this talk about having a diet with minimal oil. And what exactly does that mean? What does that diet look like? What's a sustainable diet for minimal oil and to help keep weight off?
Okay. The reason that we want to keep oils low, I should first say, don't get me wrong. If you're eating chicken fat, moving to olive oil is a good switch. Olive oil is much healthier than chicken fat, pork fat, beef fat, any of that stuff. And the reason I say that is that the really bad part of animal fat is the saturated fat that's in it. If I take, say, beef fat, it's about half saturated fat. That's the kind that elevates your cholesterol. That's the kind that's linked to Alzheimer's disease. Beef fat's really bad for you. So half of beef fat is saturated fat. The other half of the beef fat is other kinds of fats that are mixed in. Chicken fat cuts that to about 30% saturated fat. That's still pretty bad. Pig fat, even salmon fat, it's got a lot of saturated fat in it. When I switch to olive oil, it's not 50% or 30% saturated fat. It's cut to 14. So that's good. Good switch. However, if I'm trying to get my cholesterol really way down, I want to limit the oils too, because I don't want 14% saturated fat. I'd rather have 0. I don't need it. And for some reason, when people are really trying to lose weight, getting away from oils helps them enormously. And the actual explanation for this is not so mysterious. Carbohydrates, starch, like bread or rice or potatoes, they only have 4 calories in every gram. But fats, like beef fat or chicken fat, have 9 calories in every gram. And olive oil is a fat. It's got 9 calories per gram too. So if a person's trying to lose weight, getting away from animal products is job 1, but minimizing oils is pretty important too, because they're loaded with calories. We also discovered that the menstrual pain and menopausal symptoms that I described, for some reason, people do better when they're not just vegan, but also low in fat too. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah, okay. Come on up. Just let me know. I'll say it again for Dr. Barnard. Dr. Barnard, what is your opinion on incorporating fasting into a lifestyle?
I think it's a great idea. I fasted myself between 9:30 and 11 this morning. Yeah, all right, just kidding. No, I think fasting is okay. And it can be done in many different ways. Some people, they'll have sort of a semi-fast, 2 days a week, and a normal diet the other 5 days a week. You've heard of this, the 5 and 2 approach. That's okay. And some people do a much more serious fast where they will go to a special fasting center and they'll have a water only fast for a couple of weeks or maybe a month. That can be very beneficial too, but a big word of caution, that's dangerous. You're not eating anything other than water. You need to be medically monitored. So I would encourage people not to do that kind of fasting, except when they're at a proper facility like True North in California, where a doctor will see you every day and monitor you through the fast. Now, the other caution I have, let's say you're going to do a 5 and 2 fast, 5 days normal diet, 2 days fasting. The only problem is that, let's say Saturday and Sunday are my fast days. When Friday arrives, people tend to sometimes overdo it a little bit on food because they know they're going to be fasting the next 2 days. Or after their 2 days of fast, they kind of overdo it to kind of recover from it. And so if that's what your fasting means, I think you really don't need to do it. So my feeling is fasting is fine. It can be helpful. It has certain benefits. And when it's really done right, it can sometimes really help people who are seriously ill. But it's not necessary for most people. And a low-fat vegan diet is going to really probably be all you need.
Questions, raise your hand. Any questions? Yeah.
It's just really about coconut oil, versus olive oil. And coconut oil, I think, is high in saturated fat. It sounds like bad, but I just want to verify.
Dr. Barnard, can you talk about the differences or similarities between coconut oil and olive oil?
Oh, let me praise the person for asking that question. Thank you so much. Because coconut oil has been heavily marketed recently. Same with palm oil. Somebody's got quite a few acres of coconuts, and they get the oil out of it and they put it in a jar and they sell it to you. And if you look at that jar, you'll notice it doesn't look like olive oil at all. Olive oil is a liquid. Corn oil is a liquid. Safflower oil is a liquid, but coconut oil isn't. It's a waxy solid. And you think, what is this about? Well, coconut oil, if you send it to a lab, they're going to tell you it's not like other oils. It is very high in saturated fat. That's the solid fat. Now you're going to think, well, wait a minute, solid fat, saturated fat, that raises cholesterol. Coconut oil is going to raise my cholesterol. You read the label and it'll say it's all natural, it's healthy, and you go online and you have people making all kinds of foods with coconut oil. I'm here to tell you the truth. It raises cholesterol. It's almost certainly linked to Alzheimer's disease. I would not eat coconut oil ever. And the same is true with palm oil. Don't eat them ever. People who use them are trying to do a good thing. They realize that, say, people eat a burger and the burger is filled with animal products, filled with animal fat. And so they want to make you a veggie burger that has that same kind of greasy mouthfeel. So they put all kinds of coconut oil in it. That's its function, is to kind of lure a meat eater away. But for you, I wouldn't eat it at all. So shine your shoes with coconut oil, but don't eat it.
Okay, we have one more question here about oils. What about peanut oil?
Peanut oil is like other liquid oils, which is to say it's got 9 calories per gram, and it will interfere with efforts to get your hormones under better control. So I would minimize that as well. If you are young, thin, healthy, you don't have any menstrual problems, and life is great, you could probably use some occasionally without any big issue. But if you're trying to lose weight, trying to tackle diabetes or any other health issues, keep these oils to a bare minimum. So I wouldn't go crazy with it. Get yourself a good nonstick pan, read labels, choose the low-fat items, and you'll see a great benefit from that.
Another question.
I have another question here. What about nuts, and are they incorporated into this diet because they're high in fat, or how does that work?
What about nuts?
Okay. Nuts are, generally speaking, a healthy food in certain ways. They've got vitamin E in them. That's good. But what you said is exactly spot on correct, that they are different from all the other foods that are in the plant kingdom, really. They're different from vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans, and that nuts are pretty high in fat. And in nature, people didn't really encounter nut trees very often. So the foods that would be available to us wouldn't really be very high in fat. Unfortunately, now you can go into any 7-Eleven and you can get all the nuts you want, and you get this huge load of fat that nature never intended for you. Nature also put nuts in a shell, so it took time to get them apart. It was really hard to overdo it on fat. And now the 7-Eleven, well, they take the shells off too, don't they? So if you're dealing with a desire to lose weight, reverse diabetes, or any of these hormonal conditions, I would set the nuts aside for now. For healthy people, the occasional bit of nuts is okay. And a good rule of thumb, maybe about an ounce per day. An ounce is the amount that can go in the palm of your hand one time before it hits your fingers. Something like that would be about an ounce. And that'll give you some vitamin E without overdoing it too much.
Yeah, I told you that.
Yeah, I looked it up.
Do we have any more questions? Raise your hand and we can ask.
Any other questions for Dr. Barnard? All right, I think that's it. So thank you, Dr. Barnard of PCRM.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Okay, everyone, welcome.